Hi Apartment Therapy, my name is Zach Maurer. Welcome to my 300 square foot apartment in Chelsea, New York. I ended up finding this apartment through Craigslist. I thought I was getting scammed for the first couple of weeks that I was talking with the broker for this place, but it turned out to be legit. So my first impression of the space was how small it was. That was my biggest concern, just because I have my cat with me, so it needs to be able to fit the both of us. But one of the first things that I did when I got into the apartment was get the kitchen sort of in a functional way. It was the bed. I needed to make sure that I had a place to sleep. I had 3/4 of a bed frame, which we can talk about later. I was sleeping on stacks of books and my suitcase. So yeah, I was really focused on the function of the space before making sure that it looked pretty and well decorated. One of the things that really inspired me to go with a more bohemian, eclectic vibe was actually the fact that the Chelsea Hotel is just up the street. I love eating at the Chelsea Cafe all the time, but I love the history of it. I love all of the different amazing artists and musicians that have lived there. I just found that incredibly inspiring. When I was designing and figuring out this space, like obviously one of the most hotel-esque elements of this apartment was the fact that the bed is the primary focus like you'd find in a hotel. Another thing that really inspired me was the entryway. I intentionally put the espresso machine over there along with those like fun bistro cups and like the black mat. Like I really wanted it to feel like you're walking into like this really luxury hotel. Just the general decor, like the gallery walls was another element. Big art, old paintings, really unique prints. Even the mirrors that I have are kind of like eclectic and a little like ornate. So leaning into those aspects really kind of helps bring out the hotel vibes of the space. This is the entryway. And one of the things that I wanted the entryway to do is I wanted it to function as kind of just like a warm hug to people who came into the apartment. I wanted it to feel cozy and layered and textured and really well curated. So I knew I had sort of the space against this wall enough to do kind of like, I don't know, a bigger, more curated kind of vanity moment, because I never really had one of those before. So I wanted to go big with the mirror to make the entryway feel much bigger than it is, and then do like the sort of like floor to ceiling art on the walls. And when reflected in the mirror, also kind of creates this like really fun layered effect. I also wanted to cover up the closet back here. I didn't love the way that it looked, so I thought to kind of enhance the texture of it, I could put curtains over it. All of this was thrifted from Facebook Marketplace. So the curtains, these tiebacks, the curtain rod, I hand sewed these orange panels on the bottom just to make it so that they touched the floor. But really, almost everything in this space specifically was Facebook Marketplace. This is one of my favorite things in the entire apartment. So I recently got this at an estate sale. It fit like the whole idea of like, I think people's apartments should kind of look a little bit more like well-curated museums. And so I was like, oh my God, can I buy that? The person hosting the estate sale, it was the artist's son. And he said, oh, well, that's just something that my mom made. That's like a joke gift that my mom made for my dad. And he was like, are you sure you would want that? I was like, oh my God, yes, it's amazing. Like, why? I love something that has like a story behind that. And she even signed it, so it even has her signature on the back roof. And so I love special pieces like that. One of the things that I absolutely love to do is have a place for my keys by the entryway. And the other thing, like a life hack that I've learned to do, is always keep breath mints next to your keys. Just if you have like guests coming over, or if you're about to go on a date, or about to go to like a work function or something, always, always, always good to have breath mints there. These hooks were actually antiques. They were covered in like 4 layers of paint that I ended up stripping to help restore them. Also Facebook Marketplace. This is stone wall. To get the mirror up and to get these hooks into the wall, I had to go to Home Depot to rent their like big heavy duty drill just to drill in here to get them in there, but now they're like solid and I think they look absolutely gorgeous. One of the things that I knew this area needed was like a lamp or some kind of warm lighting, again to kind of go and create that cozy effect, just because I really hate an overhead light. So I got this really amazing lamp from Facebook Marketplace. It was free from Forest Hills. It needed to be rewired, but Home Depot has a rewiring kit for like 15 bucks. So I taught myself how to do that. That was a fun afternoon. It's just like the perfect little cozy old New York kind of accent to like this little area. It was amazing having such a blank slate and to like get to work with. And again, I've never lived in an apartment with like an entryway that's, you know, kind of like its own separate section. So I really wanted to lean into that. These are my rules of law when it comes to design and building out your home. The first one is if you think that you want to redesign your space or add something in and you're not sure what, I want you to turn on the lights, open a window, sit in the middle of the room, and sit in silence for like 15 minutes. Like no TV, no music, no nothing. Literally just sit in your space and just feel what comes up. See where your eye goes. Does your eye travel to a corner consistently? Does it keep going back there? Do you keep looking, like does the light look wrong or does it reveal too much? Is it too bright? Is it too soft? Like really take a moment and take a beat to really interrogate how you feel. And then you need to immediately following that, go to a journal and then write out everything that you want your space to make you feel. And then your design journey is basically just going to be about getting from point A, where you are, the things you're noticing and how you feel now, to point B, the aspirational things that you want your space to feel. I don't think a lot of people really just sit and expose themselves that much to their space. Usually you are, you know, have the TV on or the radio going or kids are running around or, you know, you have your animal running around or whatever. Taking that moment to just like really sit with it and really interrogate, okay, how does my space make me feel? That gives you your heading for where to go next. This is the kitchen space. I spend most of my time here. I cook a ton. My refrigerator is very small. The place didn't have a microwave. I had to get this one from IKEA. I don't really like the overhead lights. I put in a much more warm, kind of cozy light, kind of out of the way, just to help it feel a little more cozy, a little more lived in. The only other thing you could really do is cover up the backsplash. There's a really ugly backsplash here before. I use these Wayfair peel and stick tiles just to kind of brighten it up, make it a little warmer, because that is the name of the game, just to like warm it up, make it more cozy, especially because this is the darker half of the apartment since there's no window over here. It's mostly just function in this area. Function over form, at least for this section. So a really great way to break up the spaces in your apartment is with rugs, and I love a bunch of like mismatched rugs. So I have one rug to the entryway space and then a smaller rug in here to kind of section off the kitchen. But then another really great way to section off the space is obviously through fabric. So I got the curtain rod from Facebook Marketplace, this little tassel from Facebook Marketplace, the hook I got from Home Depot, and then this is just a regular curtain with valance from Wayfair. The table was also Facebook Marketplace. I got this for free. Family was getting rid of it in Bed-Stuy. And this is a massive table. So this table seats like 10 people. It pulls apart and there's 2 leaves in my closet. In a kitchen this small, there's obviously almost no prep space, which is one of the reasons why I love this table. So this comes up and suddenly you have a ton of space to work. I work on my laptop from here if I'm not using it to prep food for, you know, my meals. This is a piece of furniture I'm gonna have, you know, for the rest of my life. Like one day when I own a home eventually, I'll like love to have like this piece there. I knew I needed to create a bit of like a light moment here just because this is also like my prep space. So I got this little fun pendant light, which works perfectly in terms of providing visibility for when I'm cooking things. He also loves to come up here all the time and bug me, especially if there's something that he wants to eat that I'm prepping. Isn't that right, little man? But yeah, I just really wanted the space to feel curated and a little special and homey. In small New York apartments, it's really important to think vertically in how you store things and how you arrange things. So I put my little mugs up here, which I just thought was fun, especially with the ambient light over here, how it reflects off them when there's like not a lot of lighting in here. It's just like a really fun aesthetic. So I have these, and then again, kind of going with this whole vertical storage idea, I knew I needed a tall storage unit for the rest of the pots and pans and silverware and stuff in the apartment. So I got this from IKEA, and I did a lot of the frosting on these windows myself. But yeah, this just basically has everything that I couldn't fit in the storage up there. So like, you know, spoons, silverware, everything that Bentley clearly wants to get into. Obviously, Bentley needs a place to use the restroom, so I needed to be really strategic about where I put the litter box. I didn't want it in the entryway because I just don't like the idea of that being the first thing someone sees when they come into the apartment. I also didn't want it tucked away in a corner somewhere, just because I wanted it to be somewhere easy that I can get to, which is why I chose right here. It might not be the most hygienic spot, but I do plan on switching this out for another litter box here eventually. And honestly, this whole area is pretty underutilized. So I'm gonna swap this out for a wooden one that's gonna go with the rest of like the wooden aesthetic. All right, so let's talk bedroom. One of the things that I had to do coming into this was I had to decide, okay, what do I need from the space? How do I want it to function? I knew that I wanted to be able to have friends over, a relaxing space where I can kind of rest at the end of a long day. It needs to be a space that functions in the way that I can cook when I need to cook. And I also want it to be warm and inviting for people. And that's really how I chopped up the space into different zones. So I made the bed the anchor for the apartment. I knew I wasn't gonna be hosting too much just due to the sheer size of the space itself. So that's why I put the living space over here against the wall where the tour guide ultimately recommended I put the bed. I also had this storage bed frame from the old space, and if this was up against the wall, then you lose the storage space all the way around. This sort of 360-degree storage solution for a very small apartment with one closet in it. Law number 2, always build a mood board. Reference images, reference images, reference images. Like, that's everything. Like, if you don't have Pinterest, go on to Pinterest, because I think scrolling on there and just like saving things of this things that you like and be impulsive with it. It can be this, you know, chateau in Paris, because if you're looking at this thing and it makes you feel a certain way or you get excited about something from it, that's good. That's good information that you can use to help design your own space. There are ways to incorporate the things that excite you about those reference images into your apartment, no matter where it is, no matter if you live in Nebraska or Germany, you know? I also, as I mentioned, love a bohemian vibe. So I knew that I wanted to do some kind of canopy for the bed. I was pretty restricted in terms of space and materials, and everything that I do in the space I have to design around Bentley too, because he lives here as well. I couldn't have it come down too far. I couldn't have too much fabric, otherwise he would be like playing with it. The canopy also kind of helps to separate the space in and of itself as well. There's no rug here, there's no like light to separate the space like I used in the kitchen and the entryway. So ultimately the canopy is just gonna help kind of create this very cozy zone, and like the front entryway, kind of like, again, using this fabric to kind of like wrap around you and to add this layer of coziness to it. I could have gone so grand with this canopy if I had, you know, huge ceilings and a ton of wall space on either side, but due to the way that the mantle juts out from the wall and due to where my IKEA storage thing is right next to the bed, like, it was very limited. So it needed to be skinny. I wanted the raw edges, I wanted threads hanging off, like I wanted it to feel like a little aged, a little dated. So that's the reason why I went with like this antique upholstery fabric. I got just a ton of yardage of that from Facebook Marketplace. This is a replica Victorian curtain rod that I got from deep in New Jersey. It needed to be a very specific size. It couldn't be like a normal extending curtain rod either. It needed to be really sturdy. It needed to be able to have some sort of space between like the finials at the end and the rod itself, so that I could use some sort of either chain or rope or, you know, whatever it happened to be to suspend it from the ceiling. So the chains were all from Home Depot, the hooks, Home Depot, but the curtain rod and the antique fabric I sourced from Facebook Marketplace. This tan fabric here, this beige fabric, was really to help separate it from the wall. So if it's just the antique fabric against the brick, it started to get really lost unless you had a really bright light shining on it. So this was just a way to kind of separate it out. And then the black dowel I just got from Michael's. I just painted it black to kind of help suspend it. Another good question in terms of the layout of this space when I first got this place was, where am I going to put the TV? It kind of had to go in front of the bed, and this really ultimately helped kind of cordon off this as a, you know, kind of living zone anyway. You can pretty much see it from the living space over there, but this is really great since this is a space that I wanted to be more about like rest and relaxation. It really allowed me to kind of design around it. I had my 2 little IKEA organizers and wardrobe over here, and I knew that I needed a space for Bentley to get up to, just because he loves being up. He's a climber. I knew I needed some kind of like either cat run or shelves to go on this wall, because ultimately that doubles the square footage for him. I got this peel and stick carpet from Amazon to kind of make this like more climbable for him. This is kind of converted cat furniture at this point. And then in order to prevent him from climbing on top of and behind the television, which he would probably do, I got this really great mahogany cat shelf, and it worked out perfectly because adjusted slightly over, it is perfectly centered with the bed. That kind of left the rest of this space to be used as gallery wall, which again, I just want to make sure to capture that like eclectic maximalist vibe by making sure that like every inch of the walls in this space are covered with like cool art that I love, mirrors to help the space look bigger and reflect the light, fun like postcards and like postcards that my friends have written me. This is like my little study area. This is from IKEA, if you can believe it or not. This is probably the smallest desk in existence, but it works great for if ever like a work call or anything like that. That pretty much segues into the living area. I knew it needed to be the living space of the apartment, chiefly because of the fake fireplace and the exposed brick. There's just something so cozy about it. Ultimately, this anchored the social space that I've created over here. This table and these rugs were things that I brought over from my old apartment. A really fun way to differentiate from the other spaces is to kind of layer them. Obviously, this is like a very large area rug that I've layered diagonally another kind of like fun rug on top of. A lot of everything else over here was pretty much thrifted, but I love like a circular low table. There's something like I eat all of my meals over here. There's something like fun and kind of like tapping into your inner child about like sitting on the floor, especially if you have friends over. Like I'll usually let them sit on the couch, or I'll either be on the floor or in this chair, this like fun vintage parlor chair that I got from Facebook Marketplace. This is a print that I got from my old job working at Hearst. It was like a company sample sale, supposed to go to the Harper's Bazaar team, but somebody didn't want it. Well, I bought it. I knew I wanted a pendant light for over here. I knew I needed something from here, but there's no wiring. There's no way to like wire over here. So it needed to be like a renter-friendly solution. Enter this lamp, which I found on Facebook Marketplace. It is exactly what I was looking for. It was like vintage and a little eclectic, and it just looks gorgeous, but it was all the way in Staten Island, and I don't have a car. So I ended up messaging this woman, and it belonged to her mom. Her mom used to hang this lamp over her like card table, and her mom would play cards under it every week, and that was like her memory of this thing. So in honor of that woman's mom, the first night that I got this back here, my friend and I played cards under it. Law number 3 is, if it's not hell yes, it's a no. I have made so many impulse purchases that I either had to return or resell because I was ultimately unsure when I was buying them. It's a waste of time. I think, especially if you live in a small space. If you live in a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom and you're not working with a lot of space, there's not a lot of real estate that you can afford to surrender, then you want to make sure that it's things that you love, that you are crazy about. Like everything on the walls in this place, all of the art, the prints, it's like something that I could stare at for hours. Like especially the art in my entryway, I've curated it in such a way that I will literally stand over in the corner sometimes, leaning against the wall. I'll just stare at it. Like, I don't know, I think everyone should be at that level with the way that they design their space. You should love it. Like if you're putting it on the wall, like that's special. You should absolutely love the things that are on your walls. And if they aren't, then, you know, see law number 1. Like, what do you feel when you stare at the art on your walls? And then what do you want to feel? There wasn't a lot of space for a couch, especially with the desk area over here. I knew I needed like lighting, and I knew I needed like my Monstera to have some space as well. Because again, I love that kind of like lush overgrown feeling. The couch is quite small. It's modular, Facebook Marketplace, like everything else in this apartment, but it works great. And it's like beige kind of, there's a lot of colors happening over here and a lot of patterns. I knew that I didn't need like a statement couch on top of a statement parlor chair on top of layered rugs. I didn't want to feel like too eclectic, especially with the like electric green wall that I did over here. And that was super intentional. One of the must-haves for me in any apartment is I need, especially in New York City, is I need to be able to see green from my window. Otherwise, I will go crazy. If I have just a view of a brick wall, like, oh, it's terrible for my mental health, especially during the winter. I got really lucky with this apartment, and it has this amazing, like, tree. I get all of this, like, lush ivy growing throughout all of the different backyards of all the brownstones on this block. I knew that I needed a way to, like, invite that green in with me into the apartment. That is the reason why I did this green wall. It just helps to suck all of it in, and it just really highlights it anytime you look over in this room. As you can tell, I'm very high energy, so I knew I didn't want it to be like a dark and like moody green. I wanted it to have like a bit of energy to it, and because it's more on the yellow side, it really made it like a fun choice to do like a bright curtain to help frame everything. And I know what you're thinking. I truly wish that I could get rid of these bars, but sadly, they are a permanent fixture for the apartment. It's for safety. For those of you not in New York City, we're not very high up in the building, which means that theoretically, these are here to keep intruders and like burglars from getting into the apartment, although they do open, so I'm not like permanently trapped in here. If your space feels like cold and empty, if it makes you feel sad or, you know, just like whatever it brings up for you, then those are the things that you need to design for as you plan out your new space. So if it feels cold, okay, maybe choose more warm lighting. If it feels empty, or if there's like, I don't know, maybe an underutilized corner, then okay, maybe a plant could go there. Maybe a vase could go there. Maybe you could put flowers in it, you know, every other week or something like that, something to brighten it up. I loved the bathroom. I think it's the perfect size for me. I really loved the butter yellow tile in there. And I knew that I wanted to paint it and just to make it a little bit brighter, a little more energy. And I went with like a really fun goldenrod because it goes with the tile and it just like brightens up the space. Over here, you can kind of see the window. This leads to a light shaft and like an air shaft for the apartment building. I got this really great peel and stick stained glass window covering that I put over it. I think it looks great. It adds a little pop of color, adds a little bit of privacy, and it kind of matches the eclectic, you know, sort of boutique hotel vibes that I was going for. Working with like an eclectic bohemian vibe, it's really important to, because obviously you're gonna have a lot of like scattered, more random, quirky elements. It's still important to kind of plan out like the color through lines throughout the apartment. I really wanted to work with bright colors. I wanted a lot of warmth. A lot of the colors that you'll see in the apartment, you'll see reds, greens, and golds, pretty much. Those are like the big primary colors that I was working with. Coming into the apartment is when you get a big blast of red. You have the maroon curtains, the red carpet, there's red accents in some of the art in the walls, I have red towels in the bathroom, and then you have the maroon curtain that separates the entryway space. Coming in, it's this like cozy cocoon of like warm red layered fabrics. It almost feels a little theatrical, like with all of the curtains in the back. And then as you come into the living room, I really wanted the stress of everything that you kind of see and feel in here to be more green. I did know that it needed to have like a little bit more yellow to it, so I used yellow green from Benjamin Moore. And then for the bathroom, I used lemon, which again, this kind of like has this brightness to it to kind of spice up an area of the apartment that's otherwise pretty dark. And when I first moved in, it was very lifeless. There wasn't a lot of energy over there, especially with the butter yellow tile, which is really great, but it's so soft. Like I really wanted it to feel feel almost like a beach when you walked in, you know what I mean? Just like bright and vibrant. Home to me, like, I don't know, I always think of that quote, I am a living museum of everyone I've ever loved, or every person I've ever come into contact with, you know, every friend I've ever had, just all of the values that you have. And I think that my home kind of captures that pretty well. Everything's old, everything's vintage and sourced and curated. One of my values in how I shop for myself is I always try to buy vintage first. Home is a museum. It's a museum of your life. And I think that when people come into your apartment or your house, they should see you embodied in that.